How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, March 19, 2020. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I was actually talking to or writing to a famous pro wrestler, and we were writing back and forth, and it occurred to me, does it feel, you know how like sometimes you go like, man, I can't believe it's like already March. It just felt like the new year just happened, right? Like, when you think about, like, a week ago, last Wednesday, doesn't it feel like it's, like, at least, like, a month? Because every day to me feels like about 3.
It's been some very long days.
I mean, every day feels like 3 days or something like that. I mean, because there's like the news, everything changes, like, so quickly. I mean, it's unbelievable. I have a lead story in The Observer that I have rewritten more times than any story in the history of my life. I mean, every time I get, every time, like, I know what the story is, it changes. I mean, just to show you how quickly things change. On NXT tonight, obviously the segments that they did with Triple H and Tom Phillips were not done live. They were done, I don't know exactly when they were done. I know the Gargano Ciampa stuff was done yesterday. So but the Tom Phillips and Triple H stuff, I'm presuming, was done this afternoon. So they're doing those cutaways, and they're still talking about WrestleMania one night in 18 days at the Performance Center like it's one show. Before it was changed to 2 shows at the Performance Center. Before it was changed to 2 shows at the Performance Center and other locations. So it's, who knows what it's going to be tomorrow.
It's funny about that deal. So WWE announced, as Dave noted here, that WrestleMania is now Saturday and Sunday. It is now a 2-day show, and it will air from multiple locations, not just the Performance Center. Okay, undisclosed locations, closed sets.
Closed sets. Okay, so from what I understand, and this is like about the only thing, I mean, I may know more in the morning, or I may not. I've got a million questions out there, obviously. So from what I understand, most of the stuff will be at the Performance Center, but there will be gimmick matches shot in other places. So that's the idea. It's not.
What's funny about that is on our show, on Observer Live, like 3 days ago, somebody wrote in, and I read it on the air, the very idea. They brought up the 1994 Blacktop Bully Dustin Rhodes match in the back of a truck. And they said
that was horrible.
Well, I said you don't have to do it in the back of the truck, but basically, like, you can do a whole bunch of different stipulation matches from different areas. You don't tell anybody where you're going, so there's not going to be fans there. You can do a match in the Everglades or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different places you can do a match. It's going to be a lot more exciting than just doing it in the empty arena the way they shoot these empty arena matches.
Yeah, but you know what I learned tonight, and what I learned it on Monday, more than even tonight, is that on Friday and Monday, watching Raw, you think like, the empty arena is like, you can't have good matches in empty arena. Wrong. So wrong. It's the style of the match. It's not the match.
Wait. Hold on a second. It's not even the style of the match. There were 2 things that AEW did that they were so simple that I was just like flabbergasted.
Well, the fan stuff They
took the wrestlers who had already worked or were going to do matches on Dark or whatever.
Right. By the way,
they sat them in the crowd.
Real quick on this because it's in case we forget. So
I won't forget the Dark.
No. But okay. They did not tape anything for next week for AEW because I was hoping that they would, but they did tape Dark, so there will be a Dark show on Tuesday. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so they put the baby faces on one side, they put the heels on the other side, and the wrestlers they were the crowd. And that was like, I would say, 30% of why the show was better. The biggest reason
is
the show was better
is they're smarter people. And
no, the biggest reason was they put people. Well, they're smarter because they thought of this. Yes. They put the hard cam opposite the entrance and all of the big screen and everything like that.
Right.
So you barely ever saw that there was nobody in the crowd. You heard people in the crowd, but you didn't see these empty seats. WWE, they're like, They're so into where the hard cam has to be. I didn't even think about this until I watched the AEW show.
This is why
they
I told
left
you,
the hard cam in the same spot and filmed
right.
empty seats.
Right.
There's no fans, there's no wrestlers, there's nothing. So it sounds like it's in a morgue. All you have to do is add, what were there, a dozen wrestlers out there? A dozen wrestlers having fun, getting to be wrestling fans for a night. You point the camera at the stage so you don't see that nobody's in the building. It was a billion times better.
Yeah, but you know what? I watched, we talked about on Monday, I watched the show from London. And I actually watched, I'd only watched one match of it, which when we talked on Monday, which was Will Ospreay's match. So when I did that, it was kind of like, my mentality is, well, look, I just watched Will Ospreay wrestle his girlfriend. And, so you've got Will Ospreay, who's an unbelievable wrestler, maybe the best wrestler in the world, and no worse than the second best, wrestling against his girlfriend, who is a wrestler who he's going to make look good because he's Will Ospreay, and who's, they're going to have a great match. So I'm thinking this is otherworldly Will Ospreay. Okay. So yeah, this match was really good. I mean, it was compelling. It was 20 minutes. I never got bored. I thought it was a hell of a match. So I'm going but look, I watched Rey Mysterio and I watched, these different people in WWE, and it's just Will Ospreay. And I was wrong. I watched several more matches from that show, the London show. This is with no crowd, without wrestlers in the thing. And I would say that the matches may have gone a minute or two long because they tried to do the same. And then I would say the same thing about the AEW tonight, because they tried to do the same type of match that they would do at a regular arena. And at an empty arena, you do have to go a little bit shorter. But I saw David Starr and, Callum Newman, I think is his name. Because he actually deserves a lot of credit. I have it written down. David Starr, and he's 17 years old. It's the first time I've ever seen him, and he's pretty damn good, and he's going to be great. Let's see, Kyle Fletcher and Connor Mills, which was good. Callum Newman. Yeah, okay. And I saw Giselle Shaw and Mercedes Blaze, and I enjoyed every one of those matches. And the reason is it was like a revelation watching these empty arena matches. And that is I hate to say style, but it is. There is a style of wrestling. I mean, it was funny because I remember I used to be told, if you really want to see how good somebody works, turn the sound off. And my argument is that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This is only from wrestlers. It was from fans, in the 80s. Because it was in the Hulk Hogan era. If you turn the sound off and just watch him, you can really see who's a good worker. And yes, if you turn the sound off and you watch a match, and I used to do that. And what you would find is you will find who is a technically good worker as far as execution, in the sense of there were guys whose shit looked really shitty, but because they were so charismatic, or because they were good storytellers, they had good matches and it was fun. But when you have to actually watch them, that aspect of their game was the shits, but you don't even know it. And it was kind of interesting to watch that, who was really technically not that good of a worker that, the people who you thought were great ended up being the best guys with no sound, for sure. But that's not how you judge wrestling, because wrestling is all about, how you work the crowd. I mean, that's a huge component of it. But what it is that there are certain styles of learning to work the crowd that are the shits when there's no crowd. There's other styles, and it is what I've noticed is hard hitting and spectacular stuff. Resonates fine with no crowd. I mean, it's not as good as if there's a crowd, and like I said, you can't go quite as long. It's, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it would be as when I watched Friday Night SmackDown. What happened with Friday Night SmackDown is you had these wrestlers, too many of them, who have been trained to work one way. They only know this one way, and this one way, this way that they are taught, is absolutely shitty with no crowd. And so it was shitty. And it's like, I think the thing that they all, if they're going to be doing empty arena matches at WrestleMania, the thing that they need to learn in the next couple of weeks is that you need to learn that other style that, many of them can do, a lot of them can do because they came, but you got to revert back to that style because that style will enable you to do a 12 or 13 minute match. And this style that you're doing gets old at about 6. So that's a little bit of advice from someone who's not a wrestler, who studied this for all of a week, but it hit me in the frickin' head yesterday when I was watching that London show and going like, why is this so good? Now tonight, yeah.
But at the same time, that women's match on SmackDown, if there had been a crowd, it wasn't going to be a very good match. And the reality is, if you would have moved the hard cam and put 6 baby faces and 6 heels on each side of the ring for that Rey versus Andrade match on Raw, I promise you it would have been 1,000 times better than what we saw. And the thing that frustrates me...
Yeah, but you know what? As much as... Okay, first of all, the thing with Rey and Andrade is not fair because it was a 6-minute match and 3.5 of those minutes were commercial, so you didn't even see anything, so you couldn't get into it. I mean, that they didn't even have a chance because they'd already thrown in the towel from Friday. That they had the mentality that a lot of people did. I mean, that's all I heard from different people in wrestling after Friday was, this shit doesn't work. This is really bad.
It didn't work the way that they did it.
It didn't work the way they did it.
But my point here is what frustrates me is it is abundantly clear, even if nobody tries to change the way they work or anything, if you just move the camera and put some wrestlers out there, it would be better. But guess what?
It's far superior.
But guess what? What frustrates me is I know from covering WWE forever now that even though it was abundantly clear on Dynamite that a different camera angle and some wrestlers out there is going to make it better no matter what, they ain't going to do it. The hard cam is going to be in the same place facing empty chairs.
We'll find out on Friday.
I'd be willing to make you a monetary bet here.
I will not bet you because you'll probably win. But I'll tell you, but if in fact you do, if in fact this happens...
I'm a winner both ways because if I lose, I win because the show's going to be better.
Yeah, I guess so. But here's the thing. It's like these different people. I mean, I actually wrote this on in the forums today when somebody was bringing it up. This is after, pretty much right after the show was over. And I just went through some stuff and it's like, people get real mad at me sometimes about this AEW WWE thing. But tonight, and you know what? I mean, actually, the first 69 minutes of NXT were fantastic. So let me get that out of the way too. But the reality is that, I don't care. You can say whatever you want. I watch this stuff every week and whatever. Those 5 guys, okay, those guys with no experience booking until whatever, October, or maybe May, no experience booking till May, and the head booker being a guy who was just a fan, a really smart fan for sure, but a fan until a year and a half ago, are in every way blowing away that 40-person thing and the Vince McMahon with his 50 years and the Bruce Pritchard and all these guys with their 35 years and all this. They're blowing them away when it comes to creativity. They're blowing them away when it comes to storylines. And those guys that aren't supposed to be good enough workers, generally speaking, there are exceptions, are blowing, and certainly on the high-end matches, they're blowing them away on high-end matches too. And it's like, if anything, this has, I mean, I've always known, because I watch other wrestling, I was never someone who only watched WWE. And, it's like, there were times when WWE was the best wrestling in the world, and this is not that time, and it hasn't been, and most people know that. It's not, and there's times when American wrestling was third world wrestling, way behind the Mexicans and the Japanese. I mean, in the early 90s, the early mid 90s. Even though some people find that as their glory period because you started then, but Japan and Mexico blew away the United States in the early and mid 90s. But the whole thing is that there's other ways to do it, and if you think outside the box, I mean, that was what I was thinking when I watched the show tonight. Was these guys weren't in there going like, well, golly gee, this is how I grew up and this is how they worked. And so therefore this is must be what working is. Every one of these guys, with the exception of Cody, and Cody's changed a lot in the last couple of years, were guys who said like, Kenny Omega was like, I'm going to learn from watching All Japan Women's Wrestling. And Matt and Nick, I don't know where they came up with this stuff, but they did. And, part of it was just like all these things that they tell you that are supposed to are the right way and the wrong way. Some of the wrong way is better than the right way. I mean, that's the one thing that I've learned from those guys. And then, you go in there, oh, it doesn't work in a big crowd. Well, guess what? These guys have moved to big arenas and they get better reaction. And guess what? NXT gets better reaction. And some of those guys do work WWE style and some of them work old independent style that isn't supposed to work in front of more than 500 people. You put it in a big arena, it doesn't work. And they tear the fucking house down doing the exact same matches that I saw in front of 300 and 400 people 5 years earlier, and they're no better. They're the same guys, maybe some of them are a little bit better. Most of them are about the same. So anyway, that's, and that is the lesson. But the lesson of the week is that empty arena matches really don't suck. And 2 days ago, I would have told you different.
So the NXT show, as noted, was mostly, the first hour of it.
Well, we still haven't finished on WrestleMania. So Rob Gronkowski is going to be the host, and I don't know. So as far as the, it's just different. Look, part of the issue is that you don't want at any time more than 50 people in a building. So I think that's probably why they went to the 2 nights, so they wouldn't have so many people in at the same time. What I don't, I'm guessing also that you're going to do a lot shorter shows, 2 nights, because a long show isn't going to work. The location stuff will also enable you to not maximize past that 50 number because guys in other matches will be on different locations. You can get more producers in. And, it's funny because we may be wasting our breath because everything may be shut down anyway and none of this may even happen. But that's the plan as of right now is 2 days, location. It's just an attempt to do a show. I think that I think more and more it's absolutely the wrong move to do WrestleMania right now. I know that there is an argument regarding there's no other entertainment, so therefore we will get so much publicity that weekend because nothing else in this world is going to be happening, and it is an argument. But unless they put on a really good show, if they go in there and they put on a dead show, ain't going to make them new fans. If they somehow figure out a way, because remember, so much of the stuff that appeals to the masses of WrestleMania having to do with the pyro and the gaudy ring entrance, we weren't going to get any of that in the Performance Center. Ain't going to happen. So, yeah, you'll have people talking about you for a day, but then at the end of the day, at best they're going to go, oh, it was all right. I mean, it ain't going to be great. It can't be great in that setting. I don't think, because even like Will Ospreay and B, it's because number one, I'm a wrestling fan, but number two, I'm watching so close. Like if you're half-ass watching it, it's not going to really work that well. I was watching and watching the little movements and everything like that, and it was pretty damn good, and it's way better than Friday Night SmackDown, but. To an average person who's not a fan, if they're watching empty arena pro wrestling, it's still not the greatest thing in the world, and it's not going to appeal to the average person. And I know we have no timing of anything. We don't know when anything's going to happen, but it's still, I'm like completely convinced that waiting it out and, when things happen, whether it's June or July or August or whenever this is going to be, that WrestleMania can be one of the first major events when sports go on, and it can be a uplifting celebration that this show can't be. What this show is going to be is a reminder of what it's not, as opposed to a celebration of what it could be. I think timing wise, I think they completely, in whatever it is, whatever the reason. And, again, look, there's no right and wrong, and it's all new, and we're all inexperienced in living in this world the way it is. But, I don't know. What do you think? I think about this a lot, because I got to pass the time thinking about something rather than the real world. And the more I think about it, the more convinced I am that this is completely, it's just completely wrong.
I would say postpone it if we knew anything, but we don't know anything. And you can say maybe June.
Then why not postpone it?
So we're going to run. If you want to run a show called WrestleMania in August, and just call it WrestleMania instead of SummerSlam, but start building up new matches and everything, then go for it. But the stuff that they built up now, you can't hold off Drew and Brock until August.
Yes, you can.
You do.
There's not going to be, because there's not going to be another. It's not like we're going to have 4 pay-per-views between now and then. There's going to be nothing anyway. If you don't,
so we're just going to watch the same video package of Drew and Brock from now until August.
There's no. It's a bad case scenario, but it's the best you can do. Look, when they have here's a perfect example. When New Japan has G1. Okay, when G1 is over, which is traditionally the second Sunday of August, okay, they have to keep fresh a main event until January the 4th. That's 4 months. And sometimes it's not the greatest thing in the world. But
yes,
they have
but there's 2 big differences here, Dave, and you know this. It's New Japan, number 1. It's ghetto booking. This Drew Brock thing started in January, so we would be talking having Vince McMahon extend this out for 8 months.
End of January. If it's June.
We don't know if it's June. That's the point.
Well, we don't know, but we know. But look, we know April's a failure. We know June may or may not happen. We know July may or may not happen. August, I think there's a pretty good shot by August. But
we have no idea.
But we don't know. No,
it could be 18 months.
Well, if it's 18 months, then that's a different issue. But so what? Okay, at that point, it's that point. Look, the NBA, the NCAA, they're all making plans for their tournaments now. It's in their minds. It's okay. They're not, and these guys are smarter than the guys running WWE. Now, they could be wrong, but they are smarter guys than the WWE. And right now, that is what everyone is doing. Baseball's making plans for starting probably in July. Okay. The NBA is looking at how are we going to do our playoffs. They're not throwing in the towel. They're not saying we're going to go.
Yeah, but you're missing a big thing here.
No, I'm not.
No, listen.
No, I'm not.
No, I'll tell you why you're not. Because the NBA and baseball, they're not writing weekly television that needs to be 3 hours on Monday night with storylines leading to playoffs that are going to start in June. They're not doing that. There is no television.
The UFC's doing that. The UFC's going to postpone these fights.
They're postponing 3 shows.
They're trying to do the
now.
Khabib fight. They're going to try to do the Khabib fight, but
they're not required to do weekly television. There's no UFC 3-hour television show this Saturday. There's no UFC 3-hour television show the next Saturday and the Saturday after.
So what
that.
are you going to? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do on all these TV shows after WrestleMania? After WrestleMania, you're going to have months of TV building up no matches.
Well, what I would do is if I'm going to air this WrestleMania on April 5th, I'm going to finish off all of these storylines. I'm going to use the 100,000 hours that I have in the archives. I'm going to use the people that do great, excellent documentaries on the WWE Network all the time.
You can do that now. You can go in there and you can have slow build for Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre. And yeah, it's going to be so long. But guess what? They can do their match in front of maybe not 60,000 people, but they can do it in front of 15,000 people, maybe even 40,000 people. And if Drew McIntyre wins, it's going to be a great coronation moment instead of an absolute dud nothing that will mean nothing, that everyone will, try to forget. And, no one's getting over on this show. So it's the fact that it's got to be now. At least if you wait, somebody might get over. Now, it may not happen, but guess what? If these baseball people think they're starting in July, and if the NCAA thinks that they're going to do a 16-man tournament, this year, And it's the same thing. They're in the middle of storylines too, and the NBA's in the middle of storylines too.
And they have no TV.
They're going to have their NBA TV is going to be on every single week with all kinds of shows and all kinds of talk. No games, but WWE ain't going to have many games either. Yeah, the NCAA is not going to have that. There's going to be people talking. What's this? On Sports Center, okay, or Sports Center's going to keep going. Sports Center is the exact same thing for the NBA and for the NCAA as these wrestling shows are when it comes to building
it's
up.
It's 3 hours?
No, it's sports. It's 30 minutes all day long, which is going to be, so it's 24 hours actually a day, instead of 3 hours a week. So they're going to be talking about like what's going to happen in the NBA playoffs when we get going, what's happening in the NBA playoffs. They're going to be talking about this for months. What's LeBron going to do over and over and over and over. And instead of the NBA going like, oh, people might get a little bit bored of hearing this, and they will. So we need to just put this game on in like a gym with or something like this just to get it over with. And I know there's some talk they may have to do that, but they're not going to rush into doing it on April the 5th. So it's actually worse because they got to talk, the sports people got to talk about this thing 24 hours a day, not 24 hours, but 16 hours a day, 7 days a week until this thing happens, as opposed to having to produce 3-hour shows where you can fill it up with 2 hours of clips of Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith from SummerSlam in 1992 and Undertaker and Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania and all of this stuff and Ric Flair and Barry Windham, if you want to do that, from 1987. It's like you've got all of this stuff. You can use that 3-hour show. You can do a few interviews here and there. You can do a few wraparounds. And, WWE, you can fill it up. And it's just like, you wait. You wait until you can do it right, as opposed to thinking we got to do it. And then what happens again after WrestleMania? You got no destination. Okay, then you got nothing going on because you can't build anything up after WrestleMania. What are you going to do? Start building up SummerSlam that you don't, with all these new matches if you don't know anything at that point? At least, it's like if you wait for WrestleMania, you can build the WrestleMania angles at the end of WrestleMania and then go on from there. If not, you're going to be essentially in the same boat. You're going to do WrestleMania, you're going to shoot a bunch of angles, and then you're going to sit there for 4 months anyway if you can't run again. So you're going to have the same problem.
Or you don't shoot a bunch of angles, and you write everything off, and you shut everything down, and then you do months' worth or however long you need of great
shows and videos. So then you've completely wasted WrestleMania for building the future, and you've completely wasted WrestleMania for making money, and you've completely wasted WrestleMania for building guys coming out of WrestleMania. You might as well, at this stage, at that point, just say, we're not doing WrestleMania because I can't do it on this day and make it work. And I'm giving up. That's bullshit. Why doesn't the NBA give up and just go, we can't do these playoffs because
Dave,
goddamn, we can't do these playoffs on this.
Totally. Listen, if the day ever comes,
it's harder.
The day ever comes that WWE has to go 5 months building up a show with zero wrestling on television, and they can pull that off, I will say you were right.
It doesn't matter.
But this is an incredible amount of faith in WWE to pull this off.
That's got nothing to do with it because
they couldn't even pull off one Raw and SmackDown.
But you're missing the point. The point is that you are talking about something that they will probably flub up, okay? You have confidence that they will flub it up versus something that there is absolutely no chance of success for. The other one...
Well, I see the 5 months is absolutely no success.
Well, the WrestleMania in 5 months, let's just say there's 10% chance of success. WrestleMania on April 5th, 4th, and 5th is 0% chance. It's 0% because, number one...
Dude, if there's no wrestling for 5 months and you build up SummerSlam as the first time that wrestling is back and there's going to be a giant crowd, you're telling me that everyone's going to have no interest in that show? That's going to be one of the biggest shows of all time.
No, but guess what? Coming back with WrestleMania will be twice as big because WrestleMania is twice as big as SummerSlam. So, yeah.
WrestleMania on a normal year is twice as big as SummerSlam. If there's no show for 5 months, if there's no live wrestling,
and then you come back
for
with
5 months, and you come back with a SummerSlam show,
you come
it'll
back
be
with
huge.
Wait. You think that by coming back with SummerSlam, it'll be bigger than coming back with WrestleMania? You're crazy. The SummerSlam name doesn't mean anything outside of wrestling.
It means
WrestleMania
nothing on a normal year, but this is an aberration.
And guess what?
Year.
Yes, it's an aberration.
5 months with no wrestling. You could call it Starrcade. You could call it Greed.
Yes, but
and
guess
it would
what?
do huge business.
Maybe yes, maybe no. But the biggest business would be if you call it WrestleMania. It would be the biggest business of all. So why are you throwing it away? There's no reason. You're basically saying that you know these storylines that will all fail and all mean nothing on April 4th and 5th can't be delayed when in fact, God, look, guys.
No, they can't. They will not be able to hold this off 5 months. It's impossible. It will be flubbed even bigger than running on April 5th.
Then why? Then why will
so
the
just
NBA,
run it April 5th?
Then why will the
We're not talking about the NWA. We're talking about WWE and WrestleMania.
I'm talking about the NCAA tournament.
What does that have to do with WWE?
It has everything to do with WWE.
They couldn't run SmackDown and Raw successfully. And you're going to have them do this over and over again for 5 months and think it's going to build up a great WrestleMania. It will be a monumental disaster.
They're going to be doing the exact same thing that they're going to do either way. They're going to be you start hard selling it the last month when you know the date, like you do, and then you do slow sell now. Exactly like what's going to happen with the NCAA tournament. Exactly like what's going to happen with the NBA playoffs, if there are some.
I feel like you don't watch Raw and SmackDown. Like, how can you think that there's even a possibility of this being pulled off by WWE?
How could you think that there's a possibility?
They couldn't get through two shows.
Success. But it's going to be two dead shows versus the idea. What would be bigger? There is nothing bigger. There's nothing possible bigger than we go 4 months without wrestling. Then we go 4 months without wrestling, and we come back with WrestleMania.
Anything.
That's right. We
come back with anything.
But WrestleMania coming back with is going to be so much bigger. You think that, like, if the again, going back to the NCAA tournament. Okay, if you come back and you say, we got to do the NCAA tournament now, even though we can't do it, and we're going to come back. What we're going to come back with is, like the whatever one of the preseason tournaments that they do, or something like that. That it's going to be as big as if it was the NCAA tournament. It won't be 1/10 as big. We're going to come back with SummerSlam. That's nice and well and good. We're going to come back with WrestleMania. That's way bigger. You go in there, and for your history archives, you go in there and you go, In 2020, America went through this, the world, not just America, the world went through this horrible period. And one of the first things that happened, as soon as because they were going to try to jump on it first, one of the first big events that came up when we were allowed to all congregate was WrestleMania. And it was a celebration, and you have all those fireworks and everything like that. Or one of the first events is SummerSlam that, again, is big, but it isn't nearly as big. So it's again, I know, like, look, there's no perfect solution and everything is messed up and there's no guarantees of anything. Okay. But I would go with the chance that, when I weigh everything out, there ain't a doubt in my mind that this is the wrong decision.
Well, I just do it on April 5th and get it over with. So there you go.
Well, then you've wasted all these angles. You've wasted everything that you've built.
There's very little that is being wasted here. The Drew McIntyre coronation is great, and Edge and Orton is great. What else on this show? AJ and Undertaker?
For no money. You're saying that this is that all of this stuff is zero revenue value. Zero revenue value. All these matches completely are zero revenue value. As opposed to, I
think they'd be about as similar a revenue value as if you ran it after nothing for 5 months at SummerSlam.
If you ran at SummerSlam, you're going to right now SummerSlam's in the TD Garden in Boston. You're probably going to get 12,000 people in. If you went in there and you booked Raymond James Stadium in Tampa,
so book that
in August for WrestleMania.
Book that for SummerSlam.
At worst, you're going to get 35. Because if you call it SummerSlam and you book Raymond James Stadium, you're probably at best going to get 30,000 people. Okay, you call the same card WrestleMania, and you're going to get 50,000 people at least. And I'm probably giving SummerSlam too much credit and WrestleMania not enough.
I think you're not giving this situation enough credit. People are going to be dying to enjoy a live professional wrestling event in August, and they're all going to go.
Then you give them WrestleMania. Isn't that the greatest
thing? You give
them
anything.
You give them a stadium show. Don't you think a stadium show is better than...
put SummerSlam in a stadium. Whatever you want to call the show, put the show in a stadium. Call it No Way Out. Call it Greed. Call it whatever. Call it Super Brawl.
Then why don't you call it WrestleMania? Because if you call it WrestleMania...
Because, Dave, I have no faith in them dragging this out until August. It's impossible.
Everyone else.
I don't even think they could drag this out until April. I don't care about everyone else. I'm talking about WWE. If it were AEW, I'd have a totally different argument.
You're missing the point. The inability. Okay, how much revenue do you think? How much revenue do you think?
We're killing the listeners here.
I don't care because my point's right. Because
Dave, you're comparing this to the NBA and
no, I'm comparing it to anything. I'm just saying you are talking about a $0 show versus $20 million and saying that the WrestleMania name, which is the most valuable promotional name they have, you want to throw it away. You want to throw it away for no reason.
Because of extenuating circumstances with everything being shut down for 5 months. If there was no coronavirus, I would never say this.
Guess what? Okay, okay. I got a better one for you. Okay, if you think these feuds can't last, why don't you just do a bunch of empty arena matches with these matches, since that's what's going to happen, and then come back in August and call it WrestleMania? And just say, this isn't WrestleMania. We're just going to do a bunch of matches to blow through the feuds. We'll do our little angles and then come back with WrestleMania in August. That way you at least get your value for the year of WrestleMania. You get your $20 million.
If you want to do that, fine.
Okay.
But end these matches on April 5th and go into a hiatus and do whatever you want in the summer when things start back up again.
I don't care about the matches because the matches are secondary.
You were just talking about the value of these matches.
No, I'm talking about the value of the name WrestleMania.
No, you were talking about the value of the matches. You specifically said the value of the matches.
The value of the name. Well, okay. Some of the matches do have some value. They've been built up. I mean, they're not really that valuable, but put it this way, it's still a better card than you're probably going to have at SummerSlam, most likely. So you're still, put it this way, like the Bill Goldberg match, you don't need to have that now. There's no, what's the point? What's the point of Bill Goldberg and Roman Reigns now? It hasn't been overbuilt. We've seen 2 frickin' stare downs or something like that. 1 stare down in like 2 interviews. You can put that thing on hold until the summer. Brock and Drew, we haven't had that many angles. It isn't built to death yet. Undertaker and AJ, I don't care if we even see that anyway because, whatever. And then the other stuff, the rest of the other stuff is just stuff on the card anyway. Anyway, let's get out.
Well, take us through this NXT show, because I took no notes.
It was just 3 video packages. The first one was for Finn Balor and Ciampa, and they did a 69-minute, it lasted 69 minutes, so it's probably, with commercials, probably 50, 55 minutes. And I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was WWE at its best. I mean, yeah, it was too long, but look, the circumstances are what they are. It's like nothing's going to be perfect, but I loved it. It made it look like, and obviously this isn't the case, that these guys created one of the greatest storylines in history when you go through all the twists and turns that they've had through all these different matches. And obviously, by hindsight, you have weaved a story that actually wasn't there as it was going on, but they did an incredible job. I mean, one of the things that I thought was interesting was them pointing out and actually having clips of the 2015 tryout when those guys first came in. And when you see how good these 2 guys are, what it tells you about WWE talent evaluation, because they were both told.
Well, they made it very clear. If you were tall, you would be hired, but you're not. They flat out said that. They flat out said
that they cannot evaluate talent. That's what they told me. We cannot evaluate talent because Johnny Gargano was already a good wrestler in 2015, and Ciampa was good too, better than the guys they hired. So there you go. So, but anyway, they didn't tell the actual story of what those guys were first brought in for. They were brought in because they were good workers that were supposed to come in and put over the NXT guys. But what happened is when they put them together in the tag team to put other people over, they actually got over. And by doing that, they decided to actually sign it because they were actually semi whatever, it was kind of like the Samoa Joe thing. Oh, you can work anywhere you want. We just want to bring you in for TV to put guys over because you're experienced in good hands. But, we're not going to push you or anything like that. And then they actually snuck by and got over. And then they became the biggest stars on the whole brand. And the whole brand changed. And, they became, big deals. And they had this and that. And then they had, Ciampa had the knee injury. And then he had the neck injury. And the feud would start and stop and come back. And those two guys were very compelling telling the story. Because, like, the whole piece for, like, the first 40 minutes or so, they're kind of both baby faces. And Johnny, for sure, is like a total baby face. And it's not until the final part where he just comes across as this kind of crybaby who's mad that the people like Ciampa and they shouldn't like Ciampa. And I just thought that I just thought it was great for what it was. That there was once, I think I've only seen one TV show like that in my life, which was about 38 years ago with Lawler and Dundee. And they did actually a 90-minute show with Lance. It was Lawler, Dundee, and Lance. And they did a show, and all it was to build one of their, I think it was a Loser Leave Town match. Oh, I know it was a Loser Leave Town match. And, which also I think was, set gate records in the territory. That's how good the show was. And this was, I'm not saying this is going to set gate records or anything like that. And now when it comes to this, we have no idea when this match is taking place, by the way. So they did that. And then, so that was good. After that, they did a Finn Balor piece. It was all about Finn Balor against Walter, building up that match. I mean, it was good stuff for Finn in the sense that they, it was really pushing that Finn Balor was the best wrestler in the world, that Prince Devitt was the best wrestler in the world, and they signed Prince Devitt. Then he went to NXT and went through all these people. And then he went to WWE. And it's funny because they show his losses at the end when they were kind of like, I don't say jobbing him out, but kind of giving up on him before they sent him back to NXT. And when he got hurt, well, actually he didn't get hurt. He asked for time off. He got burned out, and then they brought him back on NXT. But with it was funny because it was kind of like breaking the, they showed like when he lost to Lashley, and it's like, I gave Bobby Lashley his greatest match, I gave this guy his greatest match, all these matches that he actually lost. So it's kind of trying to tell you that on the show that I'm like this super worker and I'm the best, even though I lost all those matches on the main roster. But the point is that I gave these guys their best matches, which wasn't exactly true, but he is a great worker, you can't deny that. But then, like I said, the whole piece is built on he's going to wrestle Walter, and God knows, Walter can't come in this country anytime soon. So I have no idea what that's all about. Because they already know it. It's not like it was a month ago where, all systems ahead, Finn Balor against Walter. So that's what happened there. And then it was Rhea Ripley, and, cool video packages. They showed her when she was 20 in the first Mae Young Classic, I don't want to say she was trying to look like Charlotte Flair, but there was certainly a resemblance. So, I know I can see where when she came in, people are going to go, oh, yeah, you're kind of like a young Charlotte Flair. So she changed her look and everything like that, and showed her at the next Mae Young Classic with her new look, and she looked a lot cooler or more distinctive, and cooler for sure. And they showed her wrestling Toni Storm, and I'm sitting there going like, what the fuck happened with Toni Storm? That woman was in the Mae Young Classic, and she came out like a superstar. She had so marketable, and whatever. That's, some people just get lost in the shuffle. So anyway, that was that. They built up the match. That will take place at WrestleMania on one of those 2 days. We don't know which day yet, and that was NXT.
So the AEW show, but with Cody doing this promo, he's all alone in the ring, and he basically brings out everybody that's going to be in the match coming up at whenever they do this show. There were repeated instances to the next episode of Dynamite.
So we absolutely need to address this.
Not next week.
Okay.
But it may be next week.
Right. They are of the impression that they will be doing another show next week, but they did not want to say next week because they could not, in the way the world is, they cannot guarantee next week. We cannot guarantee anything. WWE is trying to tell you there's a WrestleMania, and there's a damn good chance there won't be on those dates. Whereas these guys are trying to be honest, and it's like the next Dynamite, which right now is planned. It's not like we're shutting down for 4 months. It's we don't know. We don't know. They are going to do live shows as long as they can do live shows. And that's the story. So I don't know about the war, the what is it called?
Blood and Guts.
Yeah. Blood and Guts may or may not be next week. I did not get an answer because I don't think there is an answer as to that. I mean, it is not like a for sure no. If it was me, it would be a no. I would save that for another time. I would, why squander it, so to speak? I mean, they have kind of, Blood and Guts being on this date was important to get to where they're going on May the 23rd for the pay-per-view. But, is there going to be a May 23rd pay-per-view? I mean, I'm going to guess no. So, look, everything's going to have to be rewritten anyway because it's all out of control. This TV show itself, they were working like crazy to rewrite this TV show because there's so many different things that happened and guys that couldn't come and guys, like Marco, for example. I mean, Marco got sick and it was just like, stay home, They didn't want him traveling, so the tag went to be the 6-man went to become a 4-man. And Pac, I'm not sure what, if Pac could get him in the country. I don't know what the issue is. I didn't really get an answer on that, but he wasn't there. So that other 6-man also became a 4-man. So right now, the idea is next week. We're going to go with the ideas next week, but, there's no odds, there's no nothing. If it's not next week and it's in 3 months, then these will be the matches in 3 months.
So Nick and Kenny come out, and they basically call out the Hangman, and he comes out on the ramp, and Nick says, I know things have been strange between us. No, we can't fix this tonight, but I'm asking you as a man, will you stand with us at Blood and Guts? And Hangman raises a glass, nods, and leaves. And then Kenny says, well, let's get this show on the road. Hit the lights. Let's start this Dynamite. So
I want to say something real quick about this thing. Whether they should have done the show or not, and it is absolutely a risk to do that show. Low risk. It's low risk, but it's a risk. I thought that since they were there and they were on the air, I thought it was really an incredible job that they did. It's too bad on a lot of things. I mean, the Vanguard thing at the end of the show would have been so amazing in Rochester, New York, in front of, they were probably going to sell out Rochester. They were very close. So it'd be like, 5,000 people. When they did that angle and the Vanguard thing comes in, it would have been so great. And it was still good. But, that's the lay of the land and everything. But, that was, I thought it was very uplifting. As if you were a viewer, I thought it was, there's sort of some mixing that, mixing real life and storyline, but, maybe it's a wrestling show. You do a little bit of that. But, I know Cody, said it was, and I don't want to misquote him, but it was, let me get the wording. Hold on. Go and talk for a second because I actually got to find what he said.
So we have Ross, Excalibur, and Taz opening up the show, and then Tony goes to interview MJF, who is at ringside. They have the baby faces on one side, the heels on the other. MJF is there. He doesn't have to be in the ring because he doesn't have to be. You saw the winner's purse tonight. Might be a lot for some of these guys, but it's nothing to him. He's going to sit back, let these guys make their money. Him and Sean Spears are going to make the real money. Tony
gambling.
says, are you guys gambling?
Gambling pays better than wrestling for All Elite Wrestling?
Well, I mean, it depends on how much you're gambling. If you have a lot of money, then yes, it probably could. So MJF freaks out, but then asks Tony if he wants in on it.
And which Tony did want in on it, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, so Cody said that it was almost like an out-of-body moment seeing the hard cam red light go on when it went on at the beginning of the, basically to start the show.
So we had the Best Friends Lucha Brothers with Orange Cassidy doing commentary, which meant he said nothing. So
I thought it was kind of funny watching him look like he was asleep.
They had a pretty fun match, and heat on Trent. Chucky got the hot tag. Lucha Brothers cut him off. And the one problem that AEW has, and they still have this problem, and I realize they have done one DQ, but Orange Cassidy gets up, and he just dives off the stage onto the heels right in front of the referee. There's no DQ. And the announcers are screaming it wasn't in this match. It was another match where there was interference. It was the women's match. They're screaming at the referee like, what's going on here? The ref just allows everything to continue without a DQ. So he dives on everybody, breaks down into a four-way. Pentagon hits Trent with a low blow, which, by the way, they distracted the referee for that one.
Yeah.
And they hit the package pile driver, double foot stomp, get the pin. And MJF is very happy. Apparently he won the bet on that one. Match was fun.
Yeah. Also, I do think that there's an issue with Vince McMahon and Jake and Jim Ross. A little on the risky side. I'll just say that.
What?
I know it, and Tony too, for that matter. Shivani. I mean, when you're talking about people who are, over 60 years old, and in Vince's case, over 70.
Saying, yes.
Over 70. I mean, it's a little on the risky side. I mean, it's one thing if you're in your 30s or you're, even your 40s, like Daniels. It's a lot safer proposition. But guy Vince's age, I mean, that was not just Vince. I mean, all of them. And people in the business for the last week have brought up, some of those names, not all of them, but the older people, traveling and everything like this, about probably not the best thing. I know that obviously Vince wants to be there, and Vince no one was going to stop him, but sometimes, you should err on the side of caution. And JR's got an incredible work ethic. He's very mentally determined to do his job. I mean, he really has that. And, Jake's, look, Jake probably doesn't care anyway. Jake's been through, he's done a hell of a lot more risky things than fly to Jacksonville, in his life. So he probably has, but it's still, I don't know. But anyway, I don't know. I think those things should be thought about a little bit more when it comes to people over the age of 55, I would say. I'd say maybe that's the cutoff, that you don't really want people older than that if you can help it. I know that maybe some of the production people and all that too, but just want everybody to be safe as much as possible.
Tony interviews the Best Friends afterwards, and Chuck says, and I quote, "Death Triangle, you're a bunch of chumps. You want to kick my friend in the dick when the ref's back is turned? Next Dynamite, we don't need a ref or a ring. I want to meet you guys in a street fight, an actual street in a parking lot."
Right, they're going to film that one in the parking lot.
So this will take place, quote, at the next Dynamite.
Yes, they're going to be filming it at the parking. And you know what's interesting is, what's at that parking lot? You know what's in the parking lot right now?
Parking lot, no.
In the parking lot there? It's one of the biggest coronavirus test stands in the country.
Well, there you go.
Is in that actual parking lot.
Well, for whatever
TIA
this is
field.
worth, everybody, WWE already put out a statement, but the same thing with AEW. Everybody they weren't given the coronavirus test.
No, they take
everybody was given medical testing before they went in.
They take their temperature. I mean, which is better than not taking their temperature. They took their temperature. That's what they've been doing they did that the MLW show in Tijuana on Friday. They've done it at every AEW show, and they've done it at every WWE show. And I'm sure it probably every other show that's been around too.
Riho, Penelope Ford, Chris Statlander, Hikaru Shida in a four-way.
Okay, you got to tell me about what happened in that spot first.
Which spot?
The Chris Statlander, Penelope Ford spot. I watched that and I have no clue what happened.
I didn't even notice that spot. All I was looking at was Kip Sabian.
How could you miss that spot? It was like...
I write and I take notes, and sometimes I'm not looking at the screen.
Okay. Well, then I will say that this was probably among the most... This was like a Jackie Gata, Trish Stratus spot. I have no idea... Penelope Ford, I do know Penelope Ford came off the ropes, and that's all I know. Then I think that she may have hurt her back, but but she did get up and do her spots after, pretty quickly. But it was, I thought that they redeemed themselves, or Penelope did, when she did that springboard into a reverse Rana spot late in the match. That was really cool. But I can't believe you missed that spot. It was.
I will investigate after this show.
I mean, it's probably what I've heard most about from people who want to hate the show is that spot.
Really? I didn't get one email or text message about that.
Oh God!
I'll go back and look as soon as we're done.
Yeah, it was something.
The match itself, they did a lot of 3-way spots, 4-way spots. Kip Sabian keeps interfering right in front of the referee.
Way too much.
Announcers are screaming at the referee to do something. The ref does nothing. This is a systemic problem in this company, because not only as a viewer am I wondering, why the fuck are we not getting DQs here? But it does start to make...
They at least needed to kick him out, right?
Yes, it starts to make the wrestlers look stupid, because then you start wondering, well, why isn't everybody interfering? Why aren't more people breaking the rules? Why are you bothering to distract the referee? It makes me wonder what's going on with these other idiots. Like, clearly there are no rules here.
Yeah.
And if there are rules, you got to enforce them more than once a year. And I realize I said just do it once, but this is happening so often now that it needs to be more than once.
Well, the whole thing to me is that instead of constant interference, why don't you do it once if you do it once or twice behind the referee's back, it means a million times more than doing it 8 times in front of the referee anyway.
So finally, Shida hit a running knee, got the pin on Penelope. And that was that. We had Tony with Colt Cabana. This was awesome.
Yeah, it really was.
Cabana's out there scouting. He said he loved the women's match, but God, that Kip Sabian kept getting involved, and Sabian's at ringside, and he hears him, and he starts yelling at Colt, and he gets in Colt's face, and Cabana slaps him and says, "You think I'm not a wrestler? I'm also a wrestler here." And Sabian slinks off, so apparently they're going to be having a match down the road. We have Tony Schiavone interviewing Moxley outside the building. Tony says, "You're not medically cleared to enter the building." Moxley says, "Dude, I go where I want to go. When have I ever been medically cleared my entire career?"
But they never went in. I thought he was running at the end of the show for sure.
They don't need me punching anything. I'm going to go for a ride and blow off some steam.
He went for a ride in Shad's car with Mox license plates. Which is a pretty cool car.
Whenever and wherever blood and guts takes place, I wouldn't miss it for the world. I love that the car is an ongoing character here in this promotion.
God, he flew all the way from Vegas to do wheelies with Shad's car.
I'm sure he loved every moment of it. We have Butcher and Blade.
I bet he didn't love the trip.
Probably didn't love the trip, but I'm sure he loved tearing off in that car.
Yeah, he probably did. I probably would too.
He probably screwed it up 6 times so he could do it 7 times. We have the Butcher and Blade versus the Lucha Express.
Well, Lucha and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, no Marco.
Yep.
And MJF
Jurassic Express, by the way.
Yeah, and MJF was supposed to be the third guy, but he was out still gambling with Sean Spears and Jake and those guys. And Tully, I never mentioned Tully's name. He was there too.
So I didn't mind any of these matches without a crowd, but it was quite glaring as Jungle Boy is selling and selling and selling, and there are no girls screaming for him.
But it was still good, though.
It was good, but this match would have been much better with the crowd.
Well, every match would have been much better with the crowd. You just got to make do with what you can. I thought that when Jungle Boy was doing the sell stuff, I thought his selling was good enough to where I'm watching it on TV thinking it's coming through, even without people screaming for him. Obviously it was not at its best, but it was still better to me than a lot of stuff that I've seen, where because it's old school sell as opposed to that weird pattern stuff that doesn't play with no arena, so to speak, with no fans.
Dives for the tag, breaks down into a 4-way. MJF is screaming at Butcher to hit full death on Jungle Boy, but Luchasaurus makes the save. They hit a combo cutter on Blade, and they get the pin. Jungle Boy was supposed to dive onto the Butcher at the finish, but the Butcher forgot.
The Butcher laid on the ground, so
Jungle Boy just ran and did a cartwheel to the outside.
Yeah, did you see Jake's face?
I did not.
Oh, you need to go and watch Jake's face when this is going down. He's Jake's face watching a spot blown. So
then the Dark Order comes down to the ring. Evil Uno says The Exalted One is near. He's going to breathe new life into the Dark Order. Well, that was for sure. Stu Grayson, Alex Reynolds, John Silver, they've done a lot. Their eyes will open tonight. They'll see what Evil Uno sees. Chris Daniels could take no more. He says, my God, you've been telling lies for months. I'm sick of lies. You haven't made Alex's life better, John's life, anybody's better. All you've done is make everyone's life miserable. There is no Exalted One. It's the biggest lie. And suddenly a video appears on the big screen. A voice says, I want to introduce myself. I am the Exalted One. I'm going to put a... Anyway, he's going on and on. He finally takes off his hood, and it's Brody Lee.
There you go. Wouldn't that have been great in Rochester?
He says the word is out. They would have gone crazy.
They'd have gone crazy if this was in Rochester, which is what the plan was. I mean, that's why he was debuting in Rochester.
Chris, it's very unsafe. All your jokes, all your games. This will not go unpunished. You are not the first out-of-touch old man to not believe in me. I will make sure you are the last. I am Brody Lee. I am the Exalted One. It was awesome. Video ends. Brody's in the ring. Lays out Daniels with the big boot and the lariat. Dark Order destroys them, and he storms out. He talked! It was great.
He talked well.
Dude, even without a crowd, this was an excellent debut, because it was a video. It would have been better with the crowd going crazy, but this was definitely not a failure.
Better in Rochester. Now you know why they waited till why they would have waited till Rochester for the introduction. So yeah. Time will tell. You know, it's week 1. Time will tell. But I thought he nailed the promo really good.
We have Tony with Jake and Lance Archer, and he says, Cody Rhodes, you need to pay attention to me. I'm a Hall of Famer. We do not play games. We came here, told you what we wanted. It's okay if you want to stay away from us, but to ignore us is spitting in my face. I will not have that. I heard you and your little friends bitching like little girls about who goes to the prom. Shut up. It's time for you to stand up and meet the man. It was not going to turn into something personal, but now it has. You had a chance to meet us straight on, but you didn't. We will get your attention. They then have this Lance Archer video package.
Okay, real quick. Because a couple people had kind of thrown this one at me, and I think it's correct, is that Jake's delivery is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, but Jake gets over Jake. I don't know that he's getting over Lance.
Well, we'll soon find out.
I felt it was the anti-J.J. Dillon. J.J. Dillon was always, like, he was the ex-wrestler and all that, but J.J. Dillon always got the talent over big. You know, even though he was the ex-wrestler and knew how to do promos like an ex-wrestler. Jake has never been a manager, and I mean, that's the one thing. It's like, you know, I think that, because when it was over, it was kind of like, wow, Jake's a great promo, and the other guy just stood there, but it wasn't like he got, you need to get Lance over as opposed to get over the fact that Jake is a great talker, which we already know. It's not every great talker, becomes a great manager, and time will tell, but that I definitely have a criticism of that. And then,
well, luckily, we had a great Lance Archer video package afterwards.
The Peanut Butter Falcon. You never saw that movie?
No.
That was from the movie The Peanut Butter Falcon. That's where that whole package was, which Jake was in that movie, actually. And Jake kind of played, not exactly, because actually, I guess, it's similar from the scene in the Peanut Butter Falcon movie, but it's, we need Mick Foley in the package too.
There's a ring out in the middle of nowhere. There's all these weird dudes surrounding this ring in the middle of a field. Lance Archer shows up. He says, everybody dies. Jake's sitting out there in a chair, just smiling. He kills one dude after another, lays out everybody, and then stares at a picture with Caesar written on it of Cody. I thought this package was awesome. Very well produced.
Agreed. I mean, I haven't seen the movie and and all that, but I thought that it was, really, really cool and creative. Yes.
So we had the main event, the Elite versus Inner Circle. It was Cody, Hangman, and Matt Jackson versus Proud and Powerful and Jake Hager. Jericho comes out, and Sammy grabs the mic, and he starts singing Jericho's song.
So with MJF
there howling.
MJF, and they're singing the song. They're butchering some of the lyrics.
Sammy knew 80% of the song, but not the other 20%. And so it was just incredible. Jericho can't even keep a straight face on the
Well, they should have done the thing on the screen, with the little ball where you like when you do karaoke.
Oh my God!
They should have.
This ain't the 50s.
It would have been funny as hell.
It was funny enough, dude. This was awesome. Then Jericho does commentary, and he did absolutely bury Cody's tattoo, but then the rest of the match, he put the guy over. It's like the total package. He's got everything, wrestling, etc. Talks about Santana and Ortiz. They don't care about nothing. They failed gym class in school. I asked them what their first names were. They don't have first names. Just Santana and Ortiz. So the Elite runs wild, and Hangman and Matt are arguing about who should be getting the tag. The whole story of the match
I just figured out who Santana and Ortiz are. They're the Sweat Hogs from Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome Back, Kotter?
Yeah, that was a television show in like the 70s. It was where John Travolta first got his break.
Yes.
And Ortiz is Juan Epstein. Well, you never saw the show, so it's before your time.
It's before my time.
Ortiz is Juan Epstein. I always knew where that Ortiz came from. I thought it was Pampero Firpo, but it wasn't.
So they do their whole deal, and there's a big comeback. And the whole story is Nick and Hangman are having problems at the beginning, but finally they team up together, and Matt and Hangman double suplex Hager, and then Matt says, "Hangman, let's do this indie taker." And he lifts whoever it was upside down. They're going to do the move, but Hager yanks Hangman off the apron. Santana rolls up Matt and pins him.
Yeah, well, Santana's the one that they were going to pile drive.
Yes, so they tried to work together, but it backfired and cost them the match.
Yep.
So now they've got not only are they at a disadvantage because Nick has been killed, and we will not see him for the foreseeable future. It is now, I guess, what is it, 5-on-4? Is that the numbers, or 4-on-3? Whatever it is. 5-on-4.
5-on-4. So they lost because now the heels get the man advantage, which you kind of have to do.
It's 5-on-4. It's disadvantaged, and they have the advantage on the coin flip. So they're at a double disadvantage.
They're at a double disadvantage, right?
Jericho's cutting this promo and talking about I decree that there will be no more fans at future events until I say so. We don't need a bunch of pumpkin-headed dipshits chanting for the Elite. No fans allowed. Talks about the man advantage. Talks about how they've never had a crossword in the Inner Circle.
They've never botched and given each other their finishing moves.
Yep. And so finally there's a buzzing noise, and a drone drops from the ceiling.
Vanguard 1 showed up.
Vanguard 1 is there, and Matt Jackson says, "It's true, we've had some problems. There's one mistake in your little speech. The Elite are not outnumbered, Chris. It's not just the four of us. In fact, I made a phone call to a friend who owed me a favor." So the piano music plays. There's broken Matt Hardy in the rafters. He demands a delete chant from the empty arena, so he took something from WWE. Music underneath his appearance actually was... They could have just had a dead crowd, like nobody there, but they played the music, and it really helped to have some ambiance underneath it. It obviously would have been better with 5,000 people, but guess what? You don't have 5,000 people.
It would have been incredible, but it wasn't.
You got to do the best you can.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, it is too bad because if this show went as planned and you had Pac in the 6-man tag and you had Marco, and not that Marco's necessarily would have made the match that much better, but with MJF and it would have still been better. But Pac in the 6-man tag would have been better. And then you had the Brody Lee thing in Rochester, and that honestly, this would have probably been one of the best top tier episodes of Dynamite had it been, but look, it served its purpose. I mean, the main purpose of this show, and really of every wrestling show right now, is to take our minds off of this other stuff. I mean, that's what it's there for, and can you do that for 2 hours? Yes. And NXT, to me, again, a little too much, but, there's reasons that they did what they did in the first 69 minutes. I mean, I was totally engrossed by that, even though I know the story and everything, the way they told it. So good stuff. So there you go.
Alrighty, so we got to very quickly run through some news here. Raw ratings.
Okay, so the Raw number was the best since mid-February, and as far as why, because I did get the quarters, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be getting those because people really aren't going to care, but it was very much that it was the Royal Rumble on free television that did it. It opened up in the first quarter at, what a show now would normally open up at. So it would have been a normal, show, which was, among the lower rated. But what happened was, that whole, they were the Royal Rumble thing. What was it like till 9? Was it 9:45 or 10? I think it was till 10. I think they actually got 2 hours out of that thing. No, it ended at 9:50. The Royal Rumble. So they got, until 9:50, which is almost 2 hours of the show. They got, gaining big numbers. And that's why the rating was, as soon as the Rumble was over, it fell. It didn't collapse. The Rey Mysterio and Andrade match collapsed. The AJ Undertaker segment lost viewers. Not a ton, but it lost. And Austin, Becky Lynch lost some viewers, but not too bad. But it was really low. And the Austin segment was 2,095,000 viewers, which is, for an Austin segment, it is what it is. It's not good, but it's, look, what are you going to do? So the one thing, and I don't know how long this is going to work, but, when you look at the Raw rating and wonder, was it because there's no other sports or whatever? No, because it opened exactly where it was. This rating was because they put the Royal Rumble on TV and stretched it out for almost 2 hours, and people watched because it was the Royal Rumble on free television. So that's why the rating was
damn,
there.
if only you'd advertise that.
If you'd advertised that, the rating would have been significantly higher. If you had spent 3 days going all over advertising we're going to put the Royal Rumble on television, I think with the benefit of hindsight, which is always 2020, the number would have been significantly higher than it was.
Well, I'd like to add that I had the benefit of foresight. I predicted that. I still can't figure out why they didn't advertise those two matches.
What can I say?
Can you imagine that Goldberg DDP match where the pay-per-view went off the air?
Yep.
And if they'd opened Nitro the next day and not told you that they want to show you that match, and they just did the show.
Well, do you know?
And then completely at random, they just showed the match.
Well, do you know one of the biggest ratings of a quarter hour in the history of Nitro? It may have even been the biggest. But it was, if it wasn't the biggest, it was up there, was when they replayed, it was about a month later when they replayed, it wasn't like the next day, it was like a month later when they replayed the Hogan and Rodman and DDP and Malone match. But they advertised that they were going to do it. And that's why, I knew that worked in the 90s. I didn't know if it would still work now because there's so much about live and you can go on the network and watch the Rumble if you want to watch the Rumble and all that. But, a lot of their TV audience does not get the network. And some people, it was probably cool to watch the Rumble again because it was a really good Rumble. If it was a shitty Rumble, maybe it still would have done really well. Honestly, if it was a shitty Rumble, just because it was still the Royal Rumble, but a good Rumble helped. And the Rumble had a good, very good storyline all through it. And, that's all that. So the one thing that we've learned is that you can do that. And that's also beneficial for AEW because if they can't tape, there's AEW actually to me, they both of them, honestly, both companies, because the Gargano Ciampa thing was a really well done piece of work. It really was. They'll be okay. I mean, it's a terrible situation, but because WWE's got an endless supply of footage and they can do these packages, and AEW, what they don't have an endless supply of footage. They can do these packages, as we've seen on Road 2, but the other thing that they have is they got, they are experienced at putting together these vignette shows, BTE, and granted, I know that BT's got a lot of inside stuff, and it may have to be modified in some way if you're going to put it on TV. But there's ways to do BTE for television. I mean, I remember before there was an AEW. I remember talking to those guys about, trying to figure out maybe get, BT's a 30-minute television show, on some small station and everything like that, because maybe you could sell it because there's some creativity, and the one thing with BTE is when they work at it, it gets people over. I mean, they made Marty Scurll into a star. They made Adam Page into a star. They made Flip Gordon into a star off of that show. So, and I think they helped Cody a great deal with that show. So, again, it's not a perfect thing, but I think that what they have the ability to do is they can go out there and those guys know how to cut promos in different locations. They're not in the same room. And Nick can put the thing together and they can send it to, them, and it can be, into the show, and it can be new material every week, and different types of new material. So, I mean, will it get the numbers that a live show will get? Probably not, but it can, it can fill the time, do okay, maybe even good, maybe make some stars in some ways, out of it. Maybe they can get, a couple of these guys, Marco, Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, get them, Darby does those videos from his place too, and get some of that. And it's like, that should be the goal, is to, in some way, make the best out of a real bad situation. That's the goal right now of, both companies, is got to be, make the best out of some bad situations and think out of the box in many different ways to do it. But what we do know is that there is an audience if you put on a really great match from the past. We don't know how deep in the past, because WWE's matches were from this year, and AEW, only has, a finite, number of things, starting in May of last year, and really mostly from October. But if it's top level stuff, it'll do okay. So we've learned all that. It's not the end of the world. And like with the Raw rating is good. But you know what? If the Raw rating was 1.8 million, it is what it is. You whatever. That's just. I don't take a high rating serious, and I don't take a low rating serious. Because maybe everything will be high because of more people at home. And that's cool. And if it's not, and they all want to watch the news if they're home, because that's what people want to do, you can't fight that either. If the two shows tonight do terrible numbers because everyone's watching the news, they didn't fail. They succeed. They both succeeded. But if they do great numbers, for wrestling, that's better. But it's out of control of wrestling because the news is going to come first.
All right, we got time for one more thing here. UFC bonds.
Yeah, they got downgraded because, look, UFC's got, that's the one way that WWE is in better shape than everybody else is, they don't have a lot of debt. And again, they got a lot of money guaranteed. UFC's, WWE, and that's why, the WWE stock has not crashed like so many other stocks have. And that's for a good reason, because, it's undervalued, but, the whole stock market in a lot of cases is going to be undervalued just because of the nature of the gloom and doom and the reactions and everything. It's natural. It's what's going to happen. But as far as, UFC, they're like a license to print money, but they need to make money. They need to get these shows. That's why they're so adamant about doing it. And Dana is saying that there will be the Khabib-Tony Ferguson fight. It's gonna happen. Khabib wants to fight. I wonder what Khabib is doing, because, Khabib was here, and here you're not supposed to go to the gym, and no one's supposed to go to the gym. I'm sure he's training, but but he wants to fight real bad. He wants this fight, with Tony Ferguson, because let's face it, we've been waiting years for the fight, and he just thinks it needs to be done. But man, I would not want to go in with Tony Ferguson at any less than 100% because Tony Ferguson is a complete maniac. It's going to be, I don't know where it's going to be. There's like do you see the posters of it being on the moon?
Hey, it may as well be on the moon.
Yeah, there's no coronavirus on the moon. It's probably the safest place. But,
there are other issues.
Maybe it'll be in Antarctica. But somewhere Dana has vowed to give us this pay-per-view on April 18th. I don't know how many people are going to buy a pay-per-view on April 18th, but it doesn't matter to Dana as long as they produce it and get the match over with so Conor McGregor's got a next opponent. That's the other thing. Because by the time they get to that, we'll probably be in an economic recovery, hopefully, pray. And at that point, Conor McGregor against either Khabib or Tony Ferguson. Because I think that at that stage, late in this year, I think that if anything, we're going to have like a bounce back where people are just going to be so happy that they're going to be wanting to see big events so bad. And, there may be nothing bigger than a Conor McGregor fight at the end of the year because we don't have Floyd unless Floyd's going to come back. And Conor's, except for Floyd's, the biggest draw in combat sports and individual sports. And no matter which one, Khabib or Tony, Conor will build that thing up. I mean, and it'll be a mega event.
All right, everybody. On that note, we are totally out of time. The New Observer is going to be out on Thursday, I presume.
Oh, yeah.
Unless Dave has rewritten the cover story another 15 times.
Unless they make me rewrite everything that I've already written by changing things all over again. But that shouldn't. It should be up. I'm going to say in the afternoon, not in the evening tomorrow. But, I'm at the mercy of, I've basically got it done other than I have to write, one more AEW story. But everything else is done unless, a million things happen in the morning, in which case, it could be later. But it'll be tomorrow for sure. There's no way around. There's no way it won't be tomorrow.
All right, everybody. And that, we're going to wrap it up. Lots of stuff up at the front page, so check it out. And that's it. We will talk to you again after a while.